What's going on, Premier Planet? Justin Barlow here, and welcome to the very first, the inaugural edition of the Premier Planet podcast, the one, the only, the exclusive podcast for our wonderful patrons out there on our all-new Patreon platform. Thank you guys so much for your contributions. This is just one of the many rewards coming your way for supporting us on Patreon. And folks, what better way to kick off this podcast than by taking it from the Premier Planet podcast to the Rockin Randcast. That's right, folks. We're here in the Premier studio tonight with the man himself, Premier C.O.O. Rockin, Randy Ricci. Rand, what's going on, man?
How the hell are you, Justin?
I'm hanging. Thank you so much for coming in. And I mean, like I said, no better way to kick this off, because
making the time.
No better way to kick this thing off than with the man it all started with. Now, obviously, you're the owner, the founder, the COO, the head trainer of Premier Pro Wrestling. You founded this deal back in 2012, but
I can't believe it's been that long.
Every story has a starting point. So I want to rewind all the way to the beginning.
Sure.
And just ask, of all the professions that are out there, why was professional wrestling your calling?
I guess it is my calling. I left home at 15 years old, Justin, and I tried to go back to school, and I had this plan in my head that I was going to play pro football, because I was a hell of a football player, and I did great on the football teams I played for, but I wasn't so good as a student, But my hope then was to make a name for myself in football, enough of a name to transition into pro wrestling during the off season, like guys that had been doing it when I was really young. The one that comes to mind is Russ Francis, and then from there go to Hollywood, which was my hope. But when I got kicked out of the house, I tried to make that plan work, and it couldn't work. I had to quit school. I couldn't play football and go to school full time and support myself. So that's where it started. I always wanted to do wrestling. I just tried to fast track it and skip the Hollywood and the football part.
By the way, folks, if it sounds like a thunderstorm going off in the background, it is camp night here at the Premier Academy. A lot of new students in here. They're learning the ways in and out of the ring. They're learning how to hit the ropes and stuff. So if it sounds like a thunderstorm going off in the background, that's why. The weather's beautiful out here in Woodstock tonight. So just want to get that out of the way right out of the gate, because I'm sure a lot of people out there are wondering.
And I think it adds to the effect, to be honest with you.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and that's what we want this podcast to be.
Going back to your question, before it escapes me, my ex-wife, there was a stint there where I supported my family in a $300,000 home without working for Vince or WCW, and this was just off of wrestling. And it was 6 years actually that I supported my family, and my ex was like, "Well, why wrestling?" I'm like, "Because at this point it's all that I know." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I made a decent enough living at it, and then when I started to go into IWA Puerto Rico and places like that, I was still able to maintain it before I became production manager at TNA.
Yeah, and you've worked for what a lot of wrestling fans consider to be the big three.
Yes.
You've worked for WWE, you've worked for WCW, you've worked for TNA.
Well, I've worked for AWA, World Class Championship Wrestling down in Dallas, and also I was the last full-time crew for the USWA at Memphis.
Yeah, and those are all legendary promotions, especially, down in World Class. I mean, you wrestled in the Sportatorium, which is,
that was unbelievable.
To a lot of wrestling fans. I mean, I know it's gone now, very sadly, but to a lot of wrestling fans, that's considered holy ground.
That was surreal. The two most surreal buildings for me have ever been the Mid-South Coliseum and the Sportatorium. And words can't describe what you feel like going into either one of those buildings for the first time. I'm actually on this fucking card tonight,
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's an incredible story. I mean, you started at a time where in wrestling's so-called golden era, back in the late 80s.
Right at the end of the golden era, to be honest with you. Yeah. They were drawing money in Memphis enough to justify. I mean, the tickets were cheap. The cheap tickets in Memphis then were $2. And Memphis was averaging $14,000 every Monday night still, and they considered that on its last leg.
and 14 grand in, the late 80s, it's not
$2 tickets.
Yeah, it's not small change today, but back then, it was still pretty decent. Mm-hmm. But like you said, it was kind of the end of that era.
Yeah.
So from there, you became an enhancement talent for back then the World Wrestling Federation.
I became an enhancement talent first to get my name out there. I became an enhancement talent through Tom Rocky Stone out of Milwaukee, and when I was wrestling in Illinois, the only two places to wrestle where I was at was Windy City. Once a month, every couple of months, or for Tom Stone, who ran the same schedule. Stone got his work first with AWA through Vern Gagne.
And then then obviously a lot of fans know you from your time in the old WWF on a lot of TV tapings as Jerry Fox.
Possibly.
Yeah. But back then, even though you were an enhancement talent, you worked a lot of very big names in our industry.
Yeah, I was able to just carry myself into that industry with my networking, and the biggest networking tool that I think I had was a great relationship with handsome Jimmy Valiant, because Gorilla Monsoon was probably the stiffest guy in wrestling unless he knew you. Once he knew you and you were in there and in his heart, he rolled the red carpet out. But boy, that guy was guarded. But the fact that I was, such good friends with Jimmy, and Jimmy looked out for me, Jimmy taught me a lot, I was able to go with Chief J Strongbow and Gorilla Monsoon, which really eventually got me some direct attention from Vince.
And a lot of those names, we could say that they had a hand in the creation of what became Premier Pro Wrestling, because if it hadn't been for their, willingness and their talent in, helping bring guys like you up.
And patience. I broke into the industry. I got sober. I got kicked out of the house at 15. I sobered up at 16, and I maintained my sobriety till today, thank the Lord, 38 years. But because of that, while the other guys were out partying and all that stuff, I was up the old timers' asses trying to learn the industry. So I was very lucky to find guys like Robert Fuller and Handsome Jimmy Valiant that were patient enough to listen to my questions, not even just listen to my questions, but answer them. I was in Memphis the first month, and Robert says to me, "Kid, I can't believe this. I've been in the industry this long and that long." And his family, the Fullers, Buddy Welch, Roy Welch, they were kind of co-founders or founders of the industry. They took wrestling out of the carnivals and put them into the arenas. Roy Welch did, Rob's grandfather. Says, "I can't believe I'm watching your matches every night." And it was great because he watched my matches and tell me what I did right, what I did wrong.
Yeah, and a lot of guys who maybe don't get a lot of credit are guys like Chris Champion, also known as Yoshi Kwan from the earlier days of World Championship Wrestling when he left the NWA.
Guy. Another thing about Chris Champion, what a creative guy. Because their original gimmick he came up when he was 18, 19 years old. Him and Sean Royal were the new breed, and they were really a compelling tag team for WCW. They were just too young to handle the fame and the push that they'd gotten. So they made some mistakes. Chris also came up with the last drawing gimmick for USWA, which is Cowabunga. He was talking about that as I was leaving the territory. He actually did a believable Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle.
Yeah, and I've seen those old vignettes. You can find them on YouTube, folks. Just look up, some of them. Just look up Cowabunga and add a word like wrestling, or add a word like Memphis or USWA, something like that.
Or Yoshi Kwan, like you said, he was seconded and managed by Harley Race at a point where Chris was in his career where he was already banged up and beat up, God rest his soul. You didn't know that was Chris Champion.
No. You take one look at him, you'd think this guy was from the Orient. You'd think he was trained in Kung Fu, but what a rub for that guy to be guided through by a legend like Harley Race. But anyway,
Harley and Kevin Sullivan loved Chris Champion because Kevin knew how creative that guy was, and if Chris was alive today and could have defeated his demons, he did a lot of great work for Vincent McMahon, Vince Jr., because the creativity and knowing the wrestling industry from inside the ring out.
Right. So fast forward a little bit again. You worked for the World Wrestling Federation for a number of years.
Yep.
You spent some time in WCW,
yes.
And then you worked backstage at TNA. What was that experience like?
Heartbreaking. There's a lot of stories and a lot of bashing I could do, but at the end of the day, I know, because I broke in the industry and worked in Memphis, the Memphis territory with Jeff at the same time. We're the same age, he might be a year younger than me. We really thought that thing was going to be a place to set up shop. And it really did at one point have legs to until they started to be obsessed with firing the first shot and all that competing events. Just shut up and do your thing, and people would have caught on.
Yeah.
You know, the proof's in the pudding. The highest rated program at TNA Wrestling was the Knockouts when we finally put Gail Kim against Kong. You know, and that was the highest rated TNA Impact programming on Spike.
And I remember that was right around when I first started watching TNA, and it's a shame that promotion went the way it went. So
they shot themselves in the foot, and I said it. That, you know, you hear all these bold statements that Bob Carter had more money than Vince McMahon. It wasn't going anywhere. Well, people like Bob Carter and Vince McMahon that have that kind of money are only going to back a loser for so long. So they shot themselves in the foot. They did it to themselves. It's just really sad that a lot of great and talented people in the ring and around the ring in production, i.e., paid the price for that.
So you get let go from TNA.
Yes.
And then there's a space of time there, and eventually you decide that you're going to start what became Premier Pro Wrestling. Where did that brainchild come from?
Well, what happened was I left. When I went to work for TNA, I was told one thing, and when I landed in Nashville, I was sold on another. So I had some great stuff going down in IWA Puerto Rico, which Luke Williams had the book, and Savio Vega and Miguelito Perez owned the company after Victor Quinones had died. I thought about jumping back on a plane and going straight to the island because I'm working for this company that's already changed the rules before I even got in the office on the first day. So my love was first for what we had going or started putting together down in IWA Puerto Rico. When I was working for TNA, there was the two top talents off the top of my head, and there was more that I was thinking about. The young talents were Matt Morgan and Lance Hoyt. And I can't believe how Lance Hoyt has come into his own. I mean, this guy, he's the best big man in the business today.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. He's almost 40 years old. It's not the same guy that worked at TNA.
Yeah, no, and very, very underrated, like you said.
So my plan was, and this is in talking with Jeff. I was talking with Jeff at the same token, trying to work a deal of financing through Jerry for IWA Puerto Rico. And I got that collateral damage because Jerry ended up thinking that I was being paid off by TNA or Jeff to F up Puerto Rico. I'm like, wait a minute, how can you think that, Jerry? And whatnot, I brought the idea to you. You know? So what I wanted to do was I wanted to go partners with TNA and develop some of their talent. At that point, before they became a pimp trying to put horse on every corner, and what I mean by that is signing these guys to a deal, regardless of how many dates they work, and then trying to put them out on the indies, which is a nightmare for the talent in most cases. I wanted to take the top two or the biggest guys in that roster first off, Matt Morgan and Lance Hoyt, and have them go down and work for Savio, Miguel, and Luke 4 nights a week, because TNA ran Thursday through Sunday. That would have developed those guys that have been booked by and worked with guys like Savio Vega inside the ring and booked by Luke Williams. They would have became outstanding performers because they were both just pushed too quick because of their look and size. And they would have been so believable, and that would have translated into value working for Impact. We used to tape, I think, on Mondays and Tuesdays, so they would be able to work down there 4 days a week, make the pay-per-views, and then come and do the TVs. That was my original plan, and then partner up with IWA Puerto Rico and TNA on the gates. And then I would take my percentage off that and make my living. So that's what happened. And that, of course, was well, we'll look at that, and then I became an employee. They wouldn't let me be a subcontractor.
So what led then to the
eventual? I'm sorry,
No,
man.
that's all right. And I mean, like I said, this thing is going to be, it's going to be an open dialogue. We're not going to do a whole lot of edits with this thing. So
at one point, and people can check the internet, I was like public enemy number one to what I used to call the TNA Impact sympathizers. They used to bash me because I was just a disgruntled employee that was telling lies when I told the internet, that TNA was up to 14 weeks behind in paying production. As a production manager and also a salaried employee, they tried to use me as the shield to not pay the people that I was responsible for. So what that did was that left a horrible gap in there where if somebody decided not to show up on a certain day, or a vendor like the satellite company didn't show up with the satellite truck on a pay-per-view, what was the company going to do? So I made sure that everybody was paid for that current money that they were owed, and I took the shop because they went from 1 hour to 2 hours on spike. I had production to the point where you could count on those people. They were such a great group of people, and everybody was outstanding at what they did, where it was almost self-sustaining. And when they went to 2 hours, I took a chance, with that, like I told you about trying to get my people paid, and knowing full well it was going to go one way or the other. They either needed me because they're going 2 hours, or they were going to shit can me because of the system that I developed, where production was pretty much self-sustaining. It didn't require that much work or supervision. They didn't need to be micromanaged, at the time, because everybody knew what they did and they had the people that supervised them. You know what I mean? So when that happened, I went back to Puerto Rico and tried to recapture what was down there, which had been hammered by bad decisions, in my opinion, from Jerry Jarrett and some of the investors there, and also the angel investor and venture capitalist that I had there. And I tried to do it from knit and grit. Made a hell of an impact. I brought the business up down there 300%, but we just didn't have the money for a quality television program. And the greatest asset that IWA Puerto Rico had at that time was 2 hours of television Saturday, 2 hours of television on Sunday on Telemundo, which on the island was the NBC affiliate. So, there's nothing I could do. I came back home and said, that's it, I'm done with wrestling. I can't take this anymore. While I was in Puerto Rico, I found out I was getting divorced. I didn't even know it. My ex-wife had a plan where I was going to go to Puerto Rico. Once I got there, if I decided to come home, she said she was going to call the authorities and tell them I threatened to burn the house down with her and the kids in it. And I took a shot and came home anyway. Was done with wrestling. Then a guy with a lot of money, probably Bob Carter type money, Aubrey, and I can't remember his last name, but his family was the first milk distribution company in the state of Illinois, or actually in the country, to distribute milk in glass bottles. So this is the type of guy that had a $25 million acre field in the back of his house to make sure the native plants, which really was just a bunch of fucking weeds. You know what I mean? So he approached me to try to save something he had gotten involved with two guys that he found out the hard way didn't have any business sense or wrestling business sense. And I says, I'm not going to take this risk anymore because I can't afford to take this risk anymore. I had nothing. I was losing everything because of the divorce. And then when I started to work there, became the name of another company, and I don't want to say the name of it because I don't want to bury anybody and start internet wars and all that crap. I got left holding the bag again. And I really had no choice but to start Premier Pro Wrestling because I had the assets.
Yeah, I remember the first time I came to see a PPW taping, it was out of McHenry, Illinois at that time, and it happened to be, my first taping was nearly the last Premier Pro Wrestling taping that happened, and it was just one of those instances where, I almost refer to PPW as a bit of a zombie promotion, and you're wearing the Walking Dead shirt right now. I mean, that's absolutely appropriate because, this brand has died and come back from the dead, I don't know how many times. It's been at least 2 since I've been here.
Well, here's something that you don't know, and I know the show that you're talking about, the event you're talking about, the taping you're talking about. All of a sudden, I have all these partners, but these partners didn't have any skin in the game. The investor giving me partners, but these partners were cuffing me. I'd painted myself into a corner is what happened. And I got to take responsibility. I used bad judgment and trusted the wrong people that I broke into the business and knew since they were 17, 18 years old. So, with the partners involved, we were drawing 50 people in Mundelein, spending a hell of a lot of money. So I finally said to myself, those 2 events, F this, I'm going to do it all myself and stop waiting and developing other people because they weren't doing what they were supposed to do. And that event that you saw, we oversold that building. There wasn't an empty chair in that building.
I remember that. It was jam-packed.
I gave myself a month to promote it without any names on the card to show this investor what I could do, and let's get rid of these partners and do some fucking business. You know what I mean? When that happened, that just set off this goofy chain of events where everybody was trying to bury me, and that's what happens in wrestling. The same thing happened at TNA. The more successful you are, if it wasn't their idea, it makes somebody look bad, they get their panties in a bunch, and you're fucked.
Yeah.
Yeah,
the one upside I remember from that particular show, that was the one time I saw Samurai Del Sol, who many of you out there know now as Kalisto, one of the 6 individuals who got his WWE tryout thanks to his time spent at Premier Pro Wrestling and his time spent in the Premier Academy. Now, it's not to say that he was trained at the Premier Academy, but he honed his
skills. If you don't mind, let me clear up
Yeah,
this.
absolutely.
There's some false claims that I'm making, false claims that I trained Manny. I didn't train Manny. I never took credit for training Manny. What I took credit for was what happened, and that was getting Manny, Samurai Del Sol, Kalisto, not only his tryout, but this was difficult, okay? I had done some business with AAA out of Mexico, and I like those people, and I specifically like Dorian Roldan, the owner, and I know that he likes and respects me. What I knew was this, that when they handed him the Octagon Junior gimmick, if he hadn't signed a contract, they were going to sign a contract. When he came in to work for me, I said to him, now, did you sign a contract yet? He goes, no. They gave me the gimmick. I didn't sign a contract. I go, don't. Because for whatever reason right now, I've got World Wrestling Entertainment's ear, and I think I could get you a tryout because they're desperately looking for someone to replace Rey Mysterio. And if you remember, 8, 10, 7, I don't know how many years ago, Rey was not expected to return or be able to because he was so beat up. And they were grooming Manny for that spot, and WWE even said to me, he's under contract with AAA. I said, no, he's not. They said, yes, he's under contract with AAA. It's a dead-end topic. I go, no, he's not. He's working for me this Saturday. And I told him again, don't sign the contract, even when they get Conan to try to take you in the back room and bully you to sign. He came in Saturday and said, amigo, it's just like you said. I thought Conan was going to beat me up if I didn't sign the contract. I go, did you sign the contract? No. The following week, they pushed somebody off the tryout list to put Manny on there. The rest is history.
Yeah, and there you go. And, you know, that's really the whole reason why Premier Pro Wrestling exists today. Yes, we put on a great program every Saturday night in the Premier studio, a lot of great talent, but Premier Pro Wrestling really exists to develop talent.
That's exactly it.
Especially from the ground up. I mean, if you come to our studio tapings, folks, most of the people you see on the roster who are wrestling in that ring are our own homegrown talent. Yeah. Some maybe got their start in another promotion, got a couple months of training, came here and really stood out, really shined, and really took to the training. And above all, most important thing is they met you halfway.
They meet me halfway. And the truth is, that's all I promise them. Meet me halfway. You know, I promise them that I'll meet them halfway, but I always go a step further. And when you go a step further, your good people, the people that have the it factor that WWE is clamoring for, in Japan, I'm going to say too at this point, will meet you that way too. Yeah. You know, so at the end of the day, it's just like how my guys put together a match. They go out there thinking, how can I make this guy look good tonight? Same damn thing in life.
Exactly. And you know what? I think that's what separates Premier Pro Wrestling from most other, you know, quote-unquote indie promotions, even though I don't like to use that term in reference to PPW, but it's the term that unfortunately everybody is familiar with. Yeah. You know, we're not in the business of, you know, bringing in these big names and to draw in as many people as we can.
I've done that. I mean, by indie standards, I guarantee you I've probably set some records in some towns. Like, even North Carolina, I know it was like 3,500 people when I booked Dusty Rhodes on his birthday versus Steve Carina. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, when I'm done doing something like that, I feel like I gave birth, and without the resources, you may as well work at McDonald's because you would have made more money per hour.
Exactly. And you know, we've seen a lot of promotions in this area especially. I mean, Chicago wrestling, especially the indie scene, I mean, it is one of the hardest scenes to get buy-in because there's so much competition. You got all these guys who are shelling out money to bring in these big names, you know, bring in these, you know, indie darlings to draw a crowd. But one thing I love about Premier Pro Wrestling, and one reason I am so happy to be a part of this, is that that's never what we've been about. It's always been about our talent. It's always been about who is being developed. And really, that's why our studio tapings exist, is to get...
I've seen a real lot. And there's been times when I've had business relationships with companies like Ring of Honor, you know, for example. And I saw it happen at the time. what happened was the talent, because they weren't taking good enough care of them, became more important than the brand. So when you can't promise them something or take good care of them, they've got to go work other places. When they go work other places, your top guys, and do different things, or even go to other places and have the same matches, what does that do to the brand?
Exactly. And when you have that, you don't have what we really have here in Premier Pro Wrestling, which is, I believe, the biggest factor that sets us apart from everyone else. You don't have unity.
Yeah.
You've got all this.
How can you?
Yeah, you've got all this talent. You know, they're coming up together. They're training together 3 times a week. I mean, these guys. I don't think the
Can
people.
hear them in the background.
Yeah, I don't think the people listening know. There are training camps at the Premier Academy 3 times a week, and some of these guys, they show up for all 3 of them. And some can't because of other obligations, but they put in the effort. And like Rand said, you can hear them in the background right now. They're working their asses off back there, but training together and really being a roster that's coming up and growing up together.
And bonding, and that doesn't mean everybody's bestie or bae. What that means is that I may not like you, but I respect you, and that's how the industry's always been ran. There's so many guys that have drawn so much money that didn't particularly like each other, but they respected each other enough to do business.
Exactly.
Good business.
And when even if you don't like the guy you're standing across from in the ring, I mean, we've seen it so many times. We've seen, such different personalities get together in that ring, but when that bell rings, they're able to put on just an absolute amazing spectacle.
The fans that pay to see it, the fans that subscribe to our YouTube, the fans that pay for our subscription network, they don't give a shit if this one likes that one or that one likes the other one. And if you can't get beyond that crap and do some good business for the customer, which is what the fan is at the end of the day, you shouldn't be in it.
No, and egos go to the side in this locker room, and I think that's one thing that's very unique about it. And again, PPW, I mean, first and foremost, it's the Premier Academy and our studio tapings. I mean, doing these every single week, we see these guys get in the same place, and that's amazing too. Because all you have to do is go on Facebook, look at a lot of these Chicago area promotions that maybe are drawing big crowds, but they're jumping around from venue to venue.
Yeah, but what's a big crowd? What's a big crowd when you're making people, forcing people to sell tickets to get booked? Everything we do here is organic. I never ask anybody to do anything inside that ring or outside that ring that I haven't done myself. And there's not much I haven't done myself. I'll dig in and do anything that I have. Every time I went to a different company, it's like paying your dues all over again. When I went from AWA and WWE Extra Work to Memphis, when I went from Memphis to World Class, when I went from World Class to wherever, back to Memphis, I had to repay my dues again.
Yeah, and
you got to be humble. And the other thing is, you bring my name up to certain people, even CM Punk, because some of these people that have come here to train have checked with Punk at like Comic-Cons and stuff. You'll see the smile on their faces, or a Mick Foley when they bring my name up. And that's how I want to be known.
Exactly. And what I always have to ask, when other places say like, oh, we drew, 300 people last night.
I'll tell you right now, somebody recently left here, and I told them what was going to happen with the other promotions, because you got to sell tickets. You have to pre-sell tickets to get booked. And that's exactly what happened. They painted themselves into a corner, and all of a sudden it's all over their social media, and everybody else will see this one for pre-sales. Please, they beg to buy pre-sale tickets.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, you know what? It's not how many people you can draw; it's how many people you can draw back.
Consistently.
And we've got fans out there who have been with us for years and years, who are in those seats every single week. It's big shout out to the mayor, Tom Michaels. We love you, Tom.
We have fans, Justin, seriously, this one blows my mind. They have kin up here, and they live in Cincinnati. And every few months when they come up and see us, and then they go and spend the time with their family up here. Because they followed us first on YouTube. Unbelievable.
Exactly. And that YouTube platform, oh man, what a tool that's been. I mean, we're closing in on, at the time of this recording, we're closing in on 27,000 YouTube subscribers, and for a local quote unquote indie promotion, I mean, that is fantastic.
No money. We didn't put any money into it like Evolve has, who we just surpassed. We had no money to put into it. We had nothing extra put into it. It's just grit. And when I see something like that, I know we're on to the right track. When I see the same faces every week, there's so many things to do up here. But they come here on Saturday nights. I know we're doing the right thing.
Yeah, and you know what? I've always said, ever since I started as an MC 6 years ago, I can't believe it's been 6 years, but ever since I started back in 2013, I've always said I would rather do a show in front of 10 loyal fans than in front of 1,000 fans who aren't going to be back the next week.
Oh yeah, exactly, and that don't care or laugh at you or joke on you or make fun of you, And I'm trying not to mention other promotions or persons by name because I don't think I have to. I've always done best in business, all my businesses, when I'm not paying attention to what anybody else is doing and just focused on our stuff.
Exactly, and you know what? Our roster gets that too.
Yeah.
Because there's such a brilliant focus on what we're doing. We've had people, come in from the outside who want to come here and train. And one of the first things they say after that, even after the first day with us, is, "Man, you guys are like one big family."
Yeah, I don't like to bring in people from other organizations just because I think even if you use them to put your guys over, they're not usually happy about it. They want to get their shit in. They don't want to do what you want them to do, even though they're supposed to be there and they begged you to be there to enhance your guys. It doesn't matter. But when I do bring them in, the first batch I brought let in for a long time. There was 2 of them, and they said, "Wow, I've only been here an hour. I've spent over $150 on seminars and learned more in this first hour than I have there." And that's another reason why I just don't do it. It's got to be somebody really special. WWE even told me about one guy that they were interested in because of his size and look. Randy, never mind. If he can't listen to you and follow your direction, they're never going to make it here.
Yeah, and that you can see that lived out just by going to our website, subscribing to our on-demand service. There are going to be so many more, not just podcasts, folks. The podcast is only one of the rewards you're going to be getting by being a monthly subscriber to Patreon. We're starting it easy. We're just starting off with a simple $5 tier, but just for $5 a month, you're going to get a monthly podcast. Like I said, there was no better way to kick it off tonight than with Randy himself. And Randy's going to be back because the man has...
Interact with us, too. You got questions, send them. Yeah. Send the questions. We'll answer them. We'll mess them. If you want to check some of the facts and dates, if you get information on some of my stories being off by this or that, hit us up. Yeah, we want to be interactive with you,
And Randy's got so many more stories, which means this isn't the last time he's going to be on the podcast.
Painful ones, happy ones, heartbreaking ones, heart-wrenching ones. But at the end of the day, I still got some sort of childlike hope. I'm either these brain cells haven't given me the brain cells I'm missing, haven't given me the sense enough to register it, or I still got childlike hope in my heart, man.
And you know what? Hope is everything that's carried this company through. But remember Premier Planet, not only here on Patreon where you can get exclusive access to the Premier Planet podcast that you just finished listening to, you're also going to get exclusive access to videos. And also, we got a lot more other great stuff coming. We're just getting started with this platform. And as always, folks, our mainstays have always been social media, Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, Instagram, as we said before, our YouTube channel, which is exploding with subscribers right now. We add, I think, at least 100 new subscribers each and every week from all around the world. And I say this all the time, Premier Planet, you hear me say it. If every Saturday night and if the Patreon isn't enough for you, all you have to do is go to our official website at www.premierprowrestling.com, click the on-demand link, and you can start your 2-week free trial of our on-demand video service today. $4.99 a month after that, and we upload brand new content every week. But for right now, Rand, like you said, why don't we wrap this up? I know we got a camping session right now. Thank you folks so much for tuning in.
Thanks, Justin. We'll be in touch, I guess, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. We will see you folks later, Premier Planet. Don't forget, stay tuned right here to Patreon, just $5 a month to start. So a big thank you to Premier C.O.O. Rockin, Randy Ricci for being on our inaugural episode of the Premier Planet podcast. More of these episodes coming your way, folks, along with exclusive video content and so much more, found only on Patreon, folks. Just for a monthly fee, you can get exclusive access to all this exciting content. I'm Justin Barlow. Thank you very much for tuning in, Premier Planet. We'll see you next time.